Just so everyone's aware, we had a training session to just let out, so we're going to take a few minutes to get set up, so bear with us. All right, calling to order the Malibu Planning Commission meeting for August 6th. We have a roll call, please.
One moment, please.
Sorry, I should have asked if you were ready. My mistake.
Commissioner Mazza?
Here.
Commissioner Pearson?
Here.
Vice Chair Euring?
Here.
Chair Marks?
Here.
You have a quorum with Commissioner Jennings absent.
Thank you. Commissioner Pearson, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Commissioner Pearson. Could we have, let's talk about the agenda for today. Anyone want to move approval?
Yeah, I move approval of the agenda. Staff recommends with item 5A continued to August 20th and item 5B continued to August 20th.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? No. Motion carries. Let's see. Could we have a report on the posting of the agenda, please?
The agenda for this meeting was properly posted on July 27th, 2018, with the amended agenda properly posted on August 1st, 2018.
Thank you very much. So now we're coming to the written and oral presentations. Anyone like to speak on a topic not on the agenda today? Okay, moving on from there. Any planning commissioner comments?
Only one. For anybody who's been watching or listening to the ongoing saga of the cliffside houses, that's still alive. We've had some people out this week, so we couldn't get it resolved. We're hopefully going to get a resolution prior to our next meeting. We'll see what happens.
Thank you very much. Any questions, John?
No.
Okay. Anything?
Yeah, my only comment is, John, I'm trying to say something nice about you and not paying any attention. I say it's good to have you back, John.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're here, and keep getting healthy. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you as well. I don't have any comments other than just to add, great to see you back, John.
Thank you.
You bet. And then anything from your side?
We have no staff comments, thank you.
All right, this is going well. Next up, we have the consent calendar. Does anyone want to pull anything?
I do.
Okay, which one?
I want to pull 3B2, Selfridge.
And I'd like to pull 3B3.
Okay, they'll pull everything but the agenda. Anything else?
Minutes.
The minutes.
Sorry, minutes, thank you.
Get a motion for the minutes.
All right, so I think we'll have a motion for the minutes.
I'd like to move the minutes.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain. I wasn't here.
Oh, very good. So carries 3 with 1 abstention. Okay, so let's see. We've got some speakers on item 3B2. I'm going to slow down just for a second. To confirm, Trevor, at this point, we just jump into 3B2, right?
Staff report.
All right, so could we have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Commissioners. This item before you is the receive and file of the Planning Director's decision to approve the construction of a new single-family residence on a vacant property located at 28837 Selfridge Drive. As is stated in the notice of decision, the project does not include any discretionary requests. It is a one-story, 18-foot-high single-family residence. The residence itself is 6,452 square feet. The residence also includes an attached guest unit, an attached three-car garage, and a 61-square-foot bathroom cabana. There have been several, comment letters submitted on the project, one of which is from the adjacent property owner from 28819 Selfridge Drive. I believe that correspondence has been forwarded to you today. I met with the representatives of the property owner last Friday, and I believe we had a pretty thorough discussion about the project. They were concerned about drainage and the size of the residence. But as is indicated in the conformance table in the notice of decision, the project is consistent with all development standards of the LIP. That concludes my presentation, and I am available for any questions.
Thank you very much. And so just to take a second here, do we have any disclosures on this one from the commissioners?
Yes, I visited the property with Commissioner Pearson, walked it, and didn't learn anything that isn't in the staff report.
Thank you.
No disclosure.
Go ahead.
As Commissioner Urine said, we walked the property, met with the part of the applicant team, and discussed, I don't know, the property, the size of the building, the issue with the neighbors next door, and a couple of the other comment letters that came in. I don't believe, actually I did learn one thing new. What I learned actually is that the house next door, I didn't quite realize till I went there, is owned by the father of a very good friend of mine. And I had been to that property recently, and while that guy built me an outside table. So I've been to the property, I know it, but there you go.
Did you happen to live there? No?
I did not live there.
Okay,
no.
good, very good. Okay, my only disclosures, I did have a phone call with Susan Villain on the project, had a couple of questions which Kathleen did forward, that she responded in email. Didn't really learn anything new from that email, other than just the location of the guest house. It's more of a guest room, kind of the front of the property. So with that, let's see, do we have any questions of staff? Okay, so we'll get right into the public comment. I don't have a speaker slip for the applicant team, but I want to bring them up, or do we need a slip from them? How do we want to drive that?
If they're here, they can come out and speak first.
Okay, so I'm going to gavel in the public hearing. If you want to come forward as the applicant team, please do. Otherwise, we've got Kathleen Bigelow, who does want to speak on this as well. So if the applicant team wants to come up, you can do that. Otherwise, Kathleen, you've got 3 minutes to speak on this. Okay, good. And then we'll need a speaker slip as well when you're done presenting. Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Hi, how are you doing? My name's Alan Curran. I'm here to represent the owners of 28837 Selfridge Drive. I would just like to represent the owners and say this is a project that's a no site plan review. It's a single-story property with no basement. below 18 feet on a 1.87 acre site. No variances, clean sheets project. The property was previously approved for an ACDP in 2009, which is a larger square footage. We have a comparison analysis here showing the previously approved project and the current proposed project. The residence that was previously approved in 2009 was 2 stories plus a basement of 1,000 square foot. You'll see it here on the previously approved. The subterranean garage is included in the 1,000 square foot, and then the current proposed project is 280 square foot less than the previously approved project. We have copies of this chart, soft copy as well if you need them. So that's the current proposal for our project. We are currently approved for the concurrent submittal, which we've already progressed, at risk of the owner. We've already obtained full fire department approval, and building and safety have approved our house design. We're currently obtaining corrections back from our 3rd round, which we're currently going through some administrative corrections, and plan to resubmit in the coming weeks. We've obtained a number of letters of support on the property, which I believe have been submitted in our notice of decision, and we're open here for questions. I also have their architect, Jeff, here as well from Standard Architecture, and another representative, Candace, here as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And we still have, I believe, 13 minutes for them as the applicant team?
No, this is oral communication
you're right.
since it's
My
just,
mistake.
there's not a full hearing.
Thank you.
If you vote to bring back for full hearing, they'll get the 15 minutes.
Thank you again.
And
Sorry
if you guys don't mind bringing those up so the commission can see them, and then leave them here so anyone in the audience can view the.
Because my eyes are
The items as
going
well.
weak on me, that's why.
We
Can't read
have,
that far.
sorry, we do have some other boards here as well that show the previously approved ACDP versus our proposed, if you'd like to see them as well.
If you like, you could pass them up.
Yeah. And then they'll be available up here if anybody else wants to see it.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
That is expired, is that correct?
Yeah.
This is how you read something.
All right, so give us just a sec to kind of, well, all right.
This is actually quite well done.
Pass that down. All right, and next up, and then you guys can go ahead and take a seat. We'll call up Kathleen Bigelow as well. Kathleen, are you here?
She's coming, she's already.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
I'm Kathleen Bigelow Pettijohn. This is my brother Tim Bigelow, and we're representing 28819 Selfridge. My father and family have been in that location since 1964, and I've already submitted a letter to you explaining sort of our situation. The main thing for us is the size of the property and how it sort of changes the essential character of our neighborhood, and we continue to approve these larger and larger homes, and then that becomes the norm. The previously approved plans is immaterial. We're talking about what's on the table now, not what happened in I think it expired in 2012. So that's really all I wanted to say, is that I think that the project is large for our neighborhood, and compared to sort of an overall review of houses, much larger than the average, and I just want you to take another look at it and consider it.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, that's basically it. Yeah, it's about 2.5 times larger than any other homes, and 3 or 4 blocks away from there, and we just want you to take a look at the size compared to the rest of the neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. Okay, so next up, we'll bring it back up here for discussion.
Close the public hearing?
Oh, sorry. I'll close the public hearing, thank you, and back to discussion.
Hold it.
I think this is one of those very interesting projects in the sense that it is a total clean sheet. It's got no discretionary requests at all, and it's also absolutely massive. compared to what appears to be in the neighborhood. On the plus side, what I love about it is it's single story. It doesn't go up, so I do love that. So I think it has a chance of disappearing more with proper, I'm sure, wall of hedges that'll appear mysteriously at some point, which would be great. I think this is one of those projects to me that points out, I don't know how we can't approve it because it fits all of our codes, and that's the tough thing about being on the planning commission is sometimes you have projects that don't fit they don't really fit the pocket of what you think's right, but it fits the code. It seems almost like more of a city council level decision on what to do with this. It's huge. It's gigantic. And going out there and seeing it, you really see the size of it. But I do love some of what's been done. It's great. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's big. And so that's why I pulled it, because it does feel very, I don't know. I worry about how big it is, and yet I worry that our code allows it in that neighborhood. And it clearly does. That's my feelings right now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with everything Mikey said. I'm going to move that we bring this back for a full hearing for two reasons. One, and I'll base it what I got from my city council or my planning commissioner, Jeff Jennings. There are some people who are opposed to this project, and I think we deserve to give them the right to be heard so they can make their story as much as they want to say. I just have always found it very difficult to have a project passed and me not having a chance to talk about it. And the second reason is when we did a project over on Morning View of a similar project, we argued for a while and then agreed that the resolution was supposed to include something that said it was consistent with the municipal code. And I believe we put that in the resolution for that Morning View house. And that is not in this resolution anyplace. So I'd like to bring it back so we can hear from the people who live around it and talk about why that resolution doesn't include the municipal code.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I will second it.
Okay, I comment?
Go ahead.
I also agree, this is really no different than the Morning View house. It is covered by the municipal code and the LIP, which have provisions about mansionization. So we need to look at size. I also would like more detail. For example, under cultural resources, it basically says they walked the property and found nothing, even though 5 doors north of this, with the oldest Schulean spear point in the history of North America was found. So, and that went through our planning department. It was a big deal at the time. So we need a little more than cursory evaluations. So I'm going to vote for pulling.
Great. So if we could have
So that's a motion to bring it back for a full hearing, that the ACDP should not become final at this point in time. Is that correct?
Correct.
And just as a point of kind of process, would it be valuable to have a conversation on what we'd want to see in the report, or is that not allowed as such because of the status of this request?
I think the motion is just to bring it back as a full CDP. So it'll have a full discussion of all these items on there. If there's something that wasn't particularly addressed, you can mention it, or if it does not appear in the report, you can mention the staff and they can add it to the staff report.
Very good. Okay, so let's have a roll call vote on this one.
Vice Chair Euring,
Yes?
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Mazza,
Yes.
Chair Marks.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So next up, we have item 3B3, which also was pulled. That's Administrative Coastal Development Permit Amendment number 18005 and amendment to Condition of Approval number 33 of ACDP number 18-025 to allow for the sale and consumption of alcohol through the duration of the event. The original approval limited the sale and consumption of alcohol to Saturday and Sunday. May we have a staff report, please?
Chair?
Yes.
I pulled it. I don't need a staff report.
Okay.
I just have one comment, and I'm going to approve this, okay? My only comment is, you know, I live over in Malibu Knolls, and I've watched the traffic on PCH over the last, it's nuts, okay? And I think in the past, the Chili Cook-Off has provided liquor on Friday nights, which is basically Malibu night, all right? So those people understand driving on PCH Saturday and Sunday and Monday. So my whole point is be careful, all right? We got enough people trying to kill each other up on PCH. We don't need any more, but I'm going to move that we move this item and approve it.
You actually don't need a motion. This would just be a receive and file.
Cool.
Unless there's a motion.
I'd like to make a quick comment, or a quick question. Why is this a CDP when we had a TUP before? How is this development? And usually we're told CDPs are good forever. This is good for 4 days. So there's some technical thing I'm missing here. We had a TUP, I forgot the number, and then all of a sudden it's a CDP with a TUP.
When it was brought to you last month, it was actually a TUP and CDP all together. It was Coastal Development Permit 18-25. The reason why we started doing this in 2005, because it was November 04, so 2005 is because since it's a multi-day event that takes place between Memorial Day and Labor Day, and it's within the coastal zone, under the city's LCP, we're required to give it a a coastal development permit. And so that's why it's always come before you every year since 2005.
So like these movies and things at these shopping centers that are multiple day, those are supposed to have CDPs also?
There's a specific set of criteria in Chapter 13 that if it's a multi-day event that charges admission, it's going to perhaps has the potential to impact public access. Anything to do essentially with advertising, admission, and public access. There are certain criteria that, yes, if it meets that, then they're supposed to get a coastal development permit during that window of Memorial Day to Labor Day. Okay,
and now we're adding alcohol one more day. Are we increasing the sheriffs on that day?
Yes, we are. The referral that was attached to the plan, Jessica can speak to that, but explain that the sheriff who reviewed this, he did give us some additional staff, and she can explain that for you.
Yes, we will have additional staffing. There will be 2 additional deputies required on Friday evening.
So Friday evening is the short evening. What about the evenings when you added the booze?
Friday is the day that is being added, Friday and Monday. The sheriff specifically reviewed the plan and said that he would request 2 additional deputies on Friday evening, and the remainder of the days would have the same amount of deputies.
So there'll be 4 on Friday and 2 on the other days?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope, file it.
So receive and file, thank you very much. Move on to item number 5C. This is zoning text amendment number 18-001, an amendment to Title 17 zoning of the Malibu Municipal Code to allow the creation of access easements through the execution and recordation of covenants. This is to be citywide. Can we have a staff report, please? Oh, do we get one? Yeah? Okay.
Yes. Good evening, Chair Marks, members of the Planning Commission. What you have before you this evening, staff is looking for your recommendations to take to the City Council. This zone text amendment is going to provide you with a mechanism so that if you have properties that are held under common ownership and development is only taking place on one of those parcels, but access has to cross through an additional parcel or 2, this is basically giving you a mechanism to require the recordation of a covenant to allow for that access, and then the city now becomes a part of that covenant so that when the properties change hands, if it's a new owner who owns all the same properties, then it will be maintained in the same fashion, or if it gets sold off to separate owners, then an easement, it could transfer over to an easement. But essentially it requires the city to be part of that process and gives you something that you can add to a project once before you.
It basically allows you to create an easement against yourself for a project, if that's required, and also a mechanism to remove that if it's not needed in the future.
Does the method require the city's concurrence?
Yeah, this basically gives the city the power to then do that on a future project, and then it'd be a case-by-case basis about when it would be used and when it would be required.
In that case by case, would that come through planning or?
Yeah, basically like you would have a project come here and you would have an access issue, maybe there are multiple lots and you require an easement to be pushed across one of the lots, but they can't create an easement because they own both properties. This allows a covenant which would do the equivalent of an easement to grant that egress or ingress across the other property and let that to be recorded against the land, even though the property is owned by the same person who's applying for the development permit.
Is this caused by a flaw in our code, or other cities do it this way?
Yeah, this is a mechanism created by the state to deal with the common law issue of not being able to grant an easement against yourself. This is a mechanism that allows development projects to include these types of, they're covenants, not easements, but it basically allows you to create an easement for access or other purposes as part of an approval of a project.
Well, my question is this something new that every city's doing? Or we just figured it out?
It's not super new. I don't know, I can't give you the exact date when it went through the legislature, but a number of cities have adopted this.
Just for again, a process here, since this is legislative, do we necessarily have disclosures? No.
No disclosures needed on this one.
And then I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there any speakers on this? I'll just go and open up. Anyone want to speak on this? No? Closing. Okay, so then I'm still kind of confused. Like I'm trying to visualize in my head what are use cases where this comes up, like, or what would be, because it says in the write-up there's no impact to environment, but in my head I'm thinking, okay, this would make it easier to split properties. Couldn't that lead to more more density problems or something like this?
This just gives you the ability to, there are other mechanisms that could be used to affect this. This just makes it a lot easier. So if you have a project coming up and it needs to have access over another property, you then can use this tool to record that easement so then you know where the access is to a particular property.
And in that case, it would be, you would own both properties, the one that you're getting to and then what you're...
If you didn't own, if they're owned by separate people, then they would get the easement from the neighboring property and it would record against that property and you wouldn't have an issue.
So I guess what I'm driving at is from this rule coming in place, if it's easier to get these easements with yourself and you yourself own a large lot, is that going to open up a lot of cases where people are recording these easements as a covenant and then selling off that land because this easement carries with it, therefore a lot of proliferation.
I don't think it's going to cause any issues different. I mean, someone could sell off the land anyway. I mean, you need to have that access. I mean, every property needs to have access to it. And when you're creating a development permit, you need to know where the ingress and egress is so you can design, fire access and different, things. And so if that easement or covenant is not in place, then it could cause issues if it disappeared and now there's no access for the property and they could lead to litigation or other problems. It basically just allows the project to be approved, not to run into a future dispute over how they access the property.
No, I'm happy that they've limited this to ingress, egress, and emergency situations, so it makes it easy to control. So I'm happy with it.
So anyone want
to? So I move zone text amendment number 18001.
I'll second.
We have a roll call vote on, or just all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries 4-0. Next item up is, let's see, what is this? Yeah, 5D. Coastal Development Permit number 16-005, variance number 16-002, site plan review number 16-006, and minor modification number 16-007, an application for a new single-family residence and associated development. We have a staff report, please.
Good evening, Chair Marks and members of the Planning Commission. The project site is located approximately 1 mile inland from the Pacific Ocean in a canyon neighborhood in a windy section of Latigo Canyon Road. The neighborhood is developed with 1-, 2-, and 3-story single-family residences with accessory development, as you can see in the aerial photo. The property is bordered to the north and the west by single-family residences and to the south and east by vacant parcels. The project site both fronts and backs into Latigo Canyon Road. The applicant is proposing construction of a two-story, single-family residence on a vacant lot. The two-car garage is a car lift that lowers into the ground. A new wastewater treatment system and associated development is also proposed. The project meets the definition of hillside development and is subject to additional structure size and height standards. The maximum allowed total development square footage was reduced from 7,002 square feet to 5,251 square feet. The proposed square footage is 5,235. In addition, the maximum height of the project as a whole, from the lowest low point to the highest high point, is 35 feet. The project meets both of these standards. So here's the elevations showing the absolute height of 31 feet 6 inches. The application includes a variance for development on steep slopes, a site plan review for a height up to 24 feet for a flat roof, and a minor modification to reduce the front yard setback by 50%. The reduction of the front yard allows the structure to be built on the flattest area of the lot, as shown in orange, which reduces grading and landform alteration. If 68% of the lot was not characterized by steep slopes, as shown in blue, neither the variance nor the minor modification would be necessary. The proposed residence is not likely to obstruct primary views of neighboring residences. We haven't received any calls regarding view blockage from neighbors, nor would the project have a visual impact from public scenic areas, including Latigo Canyon Road and Escondido Falls Trail, and would not adversely affect neighborhood character. The project is notched into the hillside and conforms to the natural topography, and the top of the highest point of the project, which is the railing on the roof deck, is below the finished grade of Latigo Canyon. So here's Latigo Canyon, and here's the top of the railing. The attached two-car garage incorporates two car lifts that would lower vehicles from the garage entrance down to the lower level of the residence to provide direct interior access between the residence and the garage. This image shown is an example of a residential car lift. As you can see, the car lifts are not designed to stack additional vehicles within the garage interior. So within this space, only one car can fit. When closed, the car lift would sink into the ground and the elevation of the top of the car lift would be adjacent to the existing grade. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my mouse here. Just gonna skip that. So the floor plan shows access from the car lift to the lower level of the residence. So you can see the garage here with a corridor that provides access to the interior of the residence. As shown in the site plan, the residence is proposed on the north side of the site with access from Latigo Canyon here. No access is provided from the south side of the site here, and this is where there are significant steep slopes, which would not be developed as part of the project. So a question regarding the unexcavated crawl space on the basement floor plan was raised this morning, and the applicant has agreed to revise the area to show a crawl space of less than 6 feet in height with a solid floor. So when the applicant speaks, he'll be showing revised sections showing a 6-foot crawl space with a solid floor. The applicant also informed me today that a backup generator will be placed in the mechanical room in the basement, which is right here. The generator is important because it'll provide power in the event that there's a power outage to operate the car lift. This is a photograph taken from Latigo Canyon Road showing the existing neighborhood. And this is looking southwest from the project site at the surrounding neighborhood. This is a photo of the story poles taken from Latigo Canyon looking south towards the project site. And another perspective of the story poles. So this is taken from the south side of the site. So you can see the parcel is going down the slope here, and the story poles are up here. So this is from the lower part of Latigo Canyon. So as you can see, power poles are located near the proposed residence here. The applicant did inform me today that they are amenable to a new condition of approval requiring removal of the underground or undergrounding of the story poles or the power poles prior to framing, and will coordinate with Southern California Edison to ensure compliance with this condition. The power poles and the lines are pretty close to the story poles if you visit the site. So just to help with potential safety and fire hazards and also view issues, the applicant will remove these poles. So here's another photo taken from the south side of the site. And another photo. So Latigo Canyon Road is a designated scenic road. Based on inspection of the story poles, staff determined that the views of the residents fit within the context of the developed hillside neighborhood. In addition to being notched into the hillside to reduce the visibility of the residents, landscaping is also proposed throughout the site. So it'll blend in with the landscaping that already exists in the neighborhood. The site is also visible from a scenic area, Escondido Falls Trail, which is roughly 2,000 feet to the south and west from the subject site. From this viewpoint, neighboring homes are also visible from this viewpoint, and the proposed project would blend in with the developed neighborhood. The applicant prepared these graphics to show the project site here and here, as well as existing homes from two points of the trail. Along the trail, the house is not visible due to landscaping and topography. I did receive one telephone call today from a neighbor regarding the power lines causing a fire hazard due to the close proximity to the proposed residence. I believe we had that issue resolved. So with that, staff recommends adopting resolution number 1850 to approve CDP number 16006, along with discretionary requests inclusive of new recommended conditions of approval. And those are to have the power lines removed or undergrounded prior to framing of the residence, requiring a backup generator in the mechanical room and to be shown on the plans prior to planning approval, and to put in a solid floor to in the crawl space to create a ceiling height not to exceed 6 feet. And those plans would be revised planning prior to planning approval as well. I do have a video of the car lift if you wish to see that. It's about 38 seconds. So do you want me to, okay.
Please do.
Okay. I don't think there's any sound, but you can see how it works here. I think it repeats, so I can pause it. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Do we have any disclosures?
Yes, Commissioner Pearson and I visited the site this afternoon, noted some of the things that have now been, the new conditions have been put in with the generator for the car lift, with the telephone poles, and we met with the applicant and the architect and got a good look at the project.
Go ahead.
I talked to Richard on Thursday about the unexcavated mechanical area. And the answer came tonight.
Obviously, Commissioner Uri and I visited today and met with the applicant team right here. I'm going to go a little more detail on it. My first concern that was addressed is, what if the power goes out and you need to get in your car and leave in a hurry and it's down in the lift crypt or whatever we call that. They said that it was a plan for a backup generator so that the lift could still operate, which my concern was, a fire comes down the hill in the middle of the night, how quick can you get the heck out of there? I'll leave it for a question that I'll ask later, but how long does it take for the lift to operate, which I think I got a pretty good idea there. Second thing was very observable. The wires were right next to the story poles, and that was very obvious to all of us, maybe a foot away at the closest. That's been addressed, and so I definitely, that's been addressed, so that's great. The third thing I noted that worried me, that hasn't been brought up, was there's an interior entrance to the basement, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable yet with the exterior exit. So maybe we're going to take a look at that tonight. They were going to maybe show some previous plans and just share part of that. My concern being that a grandmother is babysitting two young grandkids. They're downstairs. She leaves on something in the kitchen. The kitchen bursts into flames. They can't go that way. Their only other way out of the house is something narrow and difficult for a grandmother with two young grandkids to get up. Just looking for a worst case scenario. Wouldn't want to see that happen. So those are things that came up during our visit today. This was actually, I gotta say something about this visit. This is the reason you gotta visit sites. This is a very interesting site, and they've done actually a spectacular job of nestling this house in really well. It doesn't go above the road grade. It's really well situated. It does look like, for a difficult property, including the power poles and power lines there, but they've done actually a very good job of making it fit the neighborhood, and I must commend them on that. And that's my disclosure.
I went for a site visit yesterday, just to get kind of a sense of the project. I was a little surprised at how steep it is there. It was a little steeper than I thought. Also, just trying to visualize in my head what it would look like coming by in Latigo if you're driving below it. So that kind of got a couple thoughts going. But other than that, I really didn't learn anything beyond what's in the staff report. So I think with that, we'll go back to any questions of staff.
I got a question that maybe, I'm not sure you can answer, maybe the applicant team can, is watching the video, it occurred to me just, let's say they're raising kids there. So that lift, I don't know, I'm sketchy on lifts in general. Not that it's not a good idea or a bad idea, but so mom and dad are away. Are they playing in that thing? How does it operate? What happens if they jump in there and push the down button, down they go? How do they get out? I'm sure there's answers for all this, but the thing looks like kind of a bit like a crypt in the video, not in a bad way, just kind of like what happens is you end up, I don't know, scary that you're sent down into that hole there. I don't know what happens exactly. I think there's a way out from that, but I want to hear it. Just I don't know what happens with kids playing and the safety of all that. What happens if somebody's in that space inside, then it goes down, all that kind of stuff. The video made me think of those horror stories. So that would be my first question there.
I think I'll defer that question to the applicant team, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead.
Should we have the applicant discuss that when they come up for their presentation, or would you like them to respond to the question?
Whenever.
Okay.
You got any other questions, Commissioner?
I think that was the one.
Okay, I had a couple as well. Let's see. So can you go bring up slide, I think it was slide 8 and then slide 11? I just kind of wanted to clarify, like, kind of what was going where. Thank you. So on that slide, so it's showing that the, that kind of slope here, there was, and then if you go to 11, that one. So is that the only place to drive a car in, or could you drive in one in there also? I don't know if you saw that. So yeah, like that path only, or can you also drive in from that path?
This is the only way to drive a vehicle into the site. There are steep slopes here. There is a roof deck here for fire department access, but the slope drops down from Latigo Canyon, so this is the only access.
Okay, and then on the, oh, go ahead.
Can I tag onto that? So if you're up on the road, can anyone just walk onto the roof? No.
No, there'll be gates
Okay.
proposed.
Just hard to tell, different, interesting design.
During your presentation, you can dig in further. And then just on the site visit, there's kind of an existing grade that goes further down to Latigo, kind of loops in around here by another set of story poles that are posted there. So there would be no kind of easement across that other property. That's the exclusive entrance for this one, as far as the plans go?
Correct, there are no easements proposed as part of this project.
Okay, and then the other question, so in the demonstration of the slide lifts, you know, they had kind of two positions, you know, either underground or above ground, right? And I'm just thinking theoretically, what if they just always park the cars with the one sticking on the poles, you know, 15, 20 feet off the ground? Is there any requirement that they have to lower the car, you know?
Inside.
Yeah, well, or they could have it. They could have inside the lift, but still have the lift up, or a car on top of the lift with it all up. You know, just, is there any specificity on how that's managed, kind of tagging on with what Mikey said there too? Yeah, like if they just left it in that position, then looking at the property from the road could look kind of weird, like, hey, there's a flying car, you know? So I don't know if there's any type of condition, or if maybe the team could talk to that. Then the other side of that is in the video they showed entrance and exits only happening from ground level. For the design of the house, it looks like they obviously exit the car from underground, go through the basement, et cetera. So kind of stating the obvious there, but yeah, so maybe just a little more discussion on, I think, kind of the mechanics of this, if you could entertain that. So that's all I had. Any other questions of staff? No? Okay, then I think we're going to jump to the public hearing. Let me go ahead and get that started. It is started. So the applicant team, led by Jamie Harnish, you'll have 15 minutes. And then we've also got Ellen Cooper and John Payne after you're done.
Thank you, Lily, and thank you, Commissioners. I'm Yo Hakamori. I'm the architect on the project. So the presentation starts off with a site plan, and I wanted to be very clear that we were very cognizant of the difficulty of the site, and we cited the project so that it was right on top of the previous design, and we thought that that was a very important aspect, that it doesn't grow beyond the plan that was previously approved for the site in 2007. So that kind of doesn't show it too well, but there is an outline in the actual package that shows the previous house that was approved in 2007, and our project is literally right on top of where that was approved. Next slide, please. Do I have a clicker? Oh. Okay. So this slide quickly shows the form and the mass of the previous design. As you can see, it's about 4 feet above the street level at the highest point, and overall height of the building of over 40 feet from the bottom to the top, looking at it from the other side. Our design was very careful in preserving the views, especially with the hillside issues that came up because of the street being a view corridor. So actually it was something that was really built into the new codes that was written, that it really caused the design to be articulated and formed in a way that allowed for the views from the street. So I think that really was an outcome of the new new codes that were written, and also really like the idea of the architecture to really kind of blend into the landscape and really step down the hill. So we were very cognizant of that design, and the outcome of that was really to create a design that the highest point, even if you include the railings, which is glass and permeable and see-through, is level with the street, and really the mass is 4 feet below the street at the lowest level, and even 10 feet below at the highest level. So that was really, really important for us to try to achieve that kind of design. So, So the question that was raised today, I understand when Lily reached out to me, was the area that we called unexcavated basement. And when you look at your plan, did you get handed out? Oh, okay. When you look at the original plan that we handed out as part of the application, it didn't clarify well what we were intending for that space. So two questions arose. Why was the wall around the perimeter and dirt filled in the middle? Why was the wall out there? Well, the wall is a structural wall, which may or may not need to be a wall. It may be we know that the previous design had like 25 caissons, like 25 to 30 feet deep to support it. So we know that this house will probably require as much as that. So the perimeter was really meant to be the area in which the caissons would be placed. And those caissons may have a grade beam on top of them. Well, I don't know yet because we haven't gotten that far in the structural. We actually haven't even started the structural. But having done some of these kind of houses, I know that we're going to have the caissons and supported by a grade beam. So we could not have the wall, but it would be replaced by a series of caissons up until you have the surface of the crawl space. And the crawl space was meant to allow for an easy way in which we could run HVAC ducting, plumbing. There's a series of bedrooms above that space, so we wanted to run the plumbing, the electricity, and the HVAC in that space. So I think if we were to make it a 6-foot space, that would be really great. But I think the options would be really, something to consider because it's still early in the process. It's slab-on grade, so there's no crawl space as option 1, or it is typical 24, 18-inch crawl space with a slab where we could run just the ducting and the plumbing, etc. Or we drop it to the allowable 6 feet to create a space that could be used maybe for more mechanical or storage. So those are the options. And what I drew was actually the biggest space. But we are still discussing that as I'm up here speaking. So those are the options. And finally, I think, oops, wrong way. The question of the emergency energy, electricity, is something that the client was considering from the beginning because of recent blackouts and things. And so the ability to operate the lift was critically important, even in a blackout. So we had thought of placing a emergency generator, a diesel generator, in the mechanical room. So in the handout that I gave you, which is not on the original plan, is a location where we would propose to put a generator somewhere in that room, and along with the other mechanical equipment. And the final question, which is the egress, potential egress that Mr. Pearson addressed just a while ago, is should we have a way out of that room? And what we propose here in this drawing is just a little corner of a way to open a door into a sunken light well. And from the light well, you would have access out of that space. And that would certainly be one option to provide an egress way in case of some sort of emergency, as Mr. Pearson indicated, a fire in the kitchen, the stair was not accessible. I did speak with a building and safety person here at Malibu, City of Malibu, and there are right now in your other drawings a series of clerestory windows that stretch across the gym and into the wine room. And as I think most of us would be able to, in an emergency situation, operate those tall windows and crawl out, or we could provide a ladder or something that could be used to get out. But I guess the question of an elderly woman or a man who has limited, physical faculties might have a difficult time getting out. And that's a question that was raised by Mr. Pearson, which I didn't really think about. But in having this discussion with the building and safety person, he said, well, it's kind of a conflict because we like to have ways out that are a maximum of 44 inches above the floor. We can't have an access out, that's high in the clerestory window. So it's kind of a dilemma in terms of what the buildings and safety wants and what the planning department wants, at least in our discussions with Lily and in the process of developing this plan. So yeah, it's just something that needs to be thought through and resolved. I think that's all. And then to answer your questions, okay. So getting to the lift. The lift that you see in this particular video is a German brand named Cardock. And Cardocks are an amazing lift. Very well built, of course, as all German things are. But the ones that we've used, I've actually in the process of using one in another house. It's not that I like it or anything like that, but it's a very tight lot in Hollywood, so we're using that. But it's American Lifts, and American Lifts has the criteria for the safety of that lift based on the laws of California. And what that entails is that when the car lift opens up, there's actually a guardrail around the whole thing that doesn't allow someone to fall in, in there. The other question you raised is what happens if there are kids playing in there? But no, there are sensors, like motion sensors and things that would detect anybody below that would not allow that to move down into it. So it's very, very critical that the safety of these things are done right, and we've been working with American Lifts that have these built-in safety mechanisms and things that are code compliant to the California. So I don't know if that answered all your questions.
What triggers the lift? What triggers it to go up and down?
It's a remote. It's like a garage door opener. So when you pull up, you open it, and it comes up, and you pull in. The other question about it being sitting up in the up position, I actually never thought of that. I don't know if there's a requirement that has to go down, like if you pull in, it just automatically goes down. I don't know that. I would always assume that someone would not want to leave their car sitting up in the air, and they'd want to put it down. But I don't know if that's a built-in safety or something like that. But the reason why we went with this idea of the lift is that we didn't want a big, massive garage in the space. That from the street, it basically looks like just a flat piece of land with some landscaping around it, and there's no mass that would obstruct the views or have this kind of mass that is separate from the house. So that's kind of why we opted for this option, thinking about the kind of topography, the landscape, and generally how we wanted the house to really blend in with the landscape. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it answers me. Thank you. Any others?
Do you know? Do you?
15 seconds, maybe. Yeah.
Do you know? I mean, I don't know how you would know, but do you know if these things are really what the safety record is?
No, I don't. They're very, very common. Well, they're common in Japan because there's no land, and Germany, of course, has. I mean, they're all over Europe. They use them a lot in Europe. It's kind of new in the United States, but I don't know the safety record. But I think that because of the strict safety rules of LA and California, that they have been in compliant with those requirements. It's American Lift is the name of the company.
Great. If no other questions, we'll call up the next
Okay.
speaker. And
Thank you very much.
thank you. Yeah, and you have 5 minutes remaining.
Okay. Can I save my time for rebuttal?
Please, yes.
Okay.
Next up, we have, I believe it's Ellen Cooper, if you can correct me, and then John Payne.
I'm not Ellen. It's my wife. Can I take her time? I'm not going to take much time.
Yeah,
We've already
so
addressed
so
it.
you're taking.
I'm
You
John.
can have your own time.
I'm sorry, I'm John. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just turn in a slip when you're done as well. But yeah, go ahead.
I gave them. I'm John. I gave them. So I'm John Payne.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
you're
just have
absolutely
different
good.
last names.
Thank you. Okay.
Does he want 4 minutes? Or
Okay.
3?
I won't take up much of your time. You address the property. There's one thing I just wanted you to realize is great. They dropped it down. My concern is when they do the caissons on that hill. That's basically a 1-to-1 slope. They're putting in a basement. Okay, I thought a basement had to have 4 sides to it, but whether it does or doesn't, they are right on top of a telephone pole. That's the main feed for Latigo. No one has addressed this. There's not a representative for Edison here. And I think, yeah, they'll wait won't put any framing up until they've addressed that. But my concern is that when you're digging caissons in a basement next to a telephone pole that's holding up the main power source for that canyon, there's a fire right now raging. I've had 2 fires up there. I do not want to go through it again. I'm sure there's a way to get around this, but Edison needs to be part of this equation, I believe, because holding them from framing, you know how stuff goes. It's like, okay, we got the foundation, come on, and then next thing you know, they're framing. That's just the way that works, and I'm sure they could stop them. It's a concern of mine, because the way the cut's gonna go, they could undermine the pole, and until that gets resolved, and I know it's being dealt with, and I know you guys are doing your job. I'm not saying a word. I don't know if everyone else has seen. You saw the site, and you saw the site. Did you walk down and look at the pole? It's right there, and that scares me. So you have a drill rig. When they tilt up, they're very tall. I don't know how they're going to drill a pile right next to that pole without hitting those lines, but when they do, that's going to cause a problem. So that's my concern, is the safety aspect of it,
And to be
not
clear,
the height. I'm sorry.
To be clear, you started by saying telephone poles. Your concern is about the electricity, those poles, so that we don't get a fire from the electrical.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
That's my biggest concern,
Okay.
and the cut they're going to do. And,
Okay.
And there will be grade beams and caissons and piles. If I go
Let's
over
give
my
a minute.
time.
If you could address that for a second.
What? Did I go over my time? Oh.
You can stay up. I just.
Why don't you let him finish his,
Oh,
you have
okay.
more.
Okay.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
That's okay. That's my concern.
Okay. Yeah, so if you could, then we'll, thank you very much for your time. And maybe if you could address that just for a second, if you don't mind.
Sure. So this came up today as an issue, and I spoke to the applicant. We haven't really had much time to talk at length about the timing for having the poles removed, either during construction. We thought that prior to framing would be an appropriate time. It's unclear what the potential impacts would be as a result of the caissons being drilled. And so I think, and we also don't know how long it might take for Edison to remove the poles and relocate them. So we wanted to provide the applicants with the flexibility as far as timing to negotiate with Edison and have those poles removed or relocated or undergrounded, while at the same time not holding up the process.
And if you please come forward, yeah, if you'd like to rebut that as well. And then he had, I think, 5 minutes left, yeah.
I think this is a very important issue, especially with all of the fires that we've had, and safety is really an important concern. And the owners have always intended to underground those. They actually have already spoken to Edison before they purchased the property, and they have conveyed to me that they, in speaking with them, they were given the permission or could proceed with the undergrounding. I don't know the exact steps because I wasn't a part of that conversation, but that was something that was discussed. In regards to the actual location of the caissons versus the story pole, which I do agree that we don't want anything that would even remotely come close to the lines. We made a slight, we looked at the perimeter around the pole, and 10 feet is what you're supposed to have, but the lines actually go at an angle, so they actually get a lot closer to the house than 10 feet, which the gentleman pointed out. But the caissons and the foundation are further away because the house actually is cantilevering out if you look at some of the sections. So the distance of the cantilever is about 15 feet, and the foundations are set in behind that. So basically you've got about 25 feet from the pole itself, and the angle of the wires would still keep the foundation drilling a ways away from that. But having said that, I think we have not started the construction documents, or we're not even into design development, so we anticipate a good 6 months of time before we even submit to the building department. And I don't know how long the building department has taken these days, but maybe 6 months? 8 months? I don't know. Okay. Well, I've done projects in Malibu, so I know it takes a while. But so if we proceed with the process of story pulling, of undergrounding these wires immediately, if we are lucky to get approved on the project, then we would try to time it so that we would be in the process of getting those things buried and out of the way before actually construction starts. That would be the goal, with the kind of actual concerns that we would have with the safety of the wires and cutting the wire and losing power to the neighborhood, all those issues that no contractor or owner would want liability for. So I think we would set up a schedule where all that is done prior to even groundbreaking, but if there was groundbreaking, we're some distance away from those initial basement. The other thing that we discovered in the process of this is that our civil engineer told us there's actually an easement for this poles that doesn't cut through the middle of the property. That Edison actually disobeyed the easement location and went straight across the property from whatever's close from point A to point B. So I don't know if that was part of the conversation with them. I doubt it because the owners weren't aware that there was actually an easement and Edison is cutting through their property, but that may be a reason why they might help us expedite, whatever process it takes to underground these poles. So I really appreciate your comments, and I think it's important to address those very clearly and in a schedule, in a way to address that in that way. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else from the public want to speak? Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public comment out, and it's back here with us. Steve or anyone?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things for sure. Starting with, I'd like to come up with a couple of extra conditions for if we're going to approve this project, and one would be that there would be backup generator. And I don't know how to word it so it's sufficient to make sure. I care more about the lift than everything else, but I guess everything else is important too. Communication, all that. I mean, it's not if something's going to happen there. It's when a fire is coming that way, as everyone who lives in Malibu knows. It's coming some point. So, and power does go out pretty often. So I think that's a condition I'd like to see.
A quick favor, Lily, I think you presented during your deck the last 3 slides. Can we bring up those exact conditions you had and see if they line up with the input from the public on this one as well? So we're all covered. (24, 5, and 6).
So this is the recommended condition for the power lines.
Now, would we need anything, I mean, from experts in this space, do we need any language other than that to make sure that it's done in the right order? I mean, obviously, the applicant is interested in doing the right thing. The neighbors are interested in seeing the right thing. Would that language keep us on the right path, or is?
I don't think it does.
What it does and doesn't.
Doesn't, right.
Because what's interesting about this is it allows potentially for the wires and poles to be moved in somebody else's sightline that doesn't see them coming. I mean, they're pretty noticeable. They're dramatically noticeable, so.
But they're going underground, right?
It doesn't say that here, does it?
You can add a undergrounding condition.
Right.
If the applicant is,
that's what I think's missing.
I agree with Mr. Payne. Look, safety is
number one.
Yeah. All right. And if you got to go overboard for safety, I think it's worth doing. So I'm inclined to go, Commissioner Pearson, that says you got underground, and that's got to be done prior to any kind of construction taking place on there.
Okay.
prior to which point? Prior to grading?
Prior to anything. You don't want to touch those poles.
And the poles are right on the pad.
And the pole is 6 inches from where the.
How about prior to issuance of grading permits? Would that be?
As long as that says nobody can do anything until that stuff's underground, that's fine with me.
The first step on the site would be to grade and install the foundations. So if we did it before the grading permit was issued, we could make it a condition.
Work for you? John? Jamie, what do you think?
Hello, my name is Jamie Harnish. I represent the applicant. The only thing I'd like to say is, yes, the applicant certainly wants to go underground with those poles and utility lines if it's within their property with a new easement. It's up to Edison whether they want to continue to cut through our property and create a new easement, which we would be agreeable to. But if Edison decides to go to their original easement, we have no control over that. The only thing we have control over is arguing with Edison to remove the poles and the lines from our property where they don't have an easement, and yes, we're willing to give them an easement to go underground. But if Edison chooses to do something otherwise,
so you're saying you're saying we can't guarantee, if we say you got to underground it, you may not have the ability to make that happen.
if they choose to follow their easement, which is off of our property, we can't force them to do something on someone else's property within their easement.
One favor, just a second. Lily, can we bring up a slide which shows, that we can at least talk to and kind of point to? Because I kind of follow, but without being able to point at something.
Trevor, I have a question too. If, let's just say what he says is right, that Edison wants to do their own deal, does that have to come to us?
If they're going to put in new poles, I mean, we would have to look at the particular project, but I imagine we need a CDP.
Yeah, but they can't even apply for a CDP if it's on somebody else's property.
They would need to have an applicant who, well, if they have the rights to an easement on the property, they may be able to be the applicant there.
Yes, and the owner could be at least a notified co-applicant at this point.
And Lily, can you use your cursor to kind of point to where the power lines are, and then maybe if we could get a little just description of what your thoughts are, where the easement is versus?
Sure. The power lines, let's see. I'd say they run alongside the western side of the property, like that, would you say? Okay.
That's pretty close.
And the easement, as the applicant stated, is located off-site, so it's not shown in the site plan.
And like which direction off-site? Like
to the east.
Cursor is.
So over here.
Oh, east. Interesting.
Excuse me, could you please go to the microphone so we can get it on the record? Thank you.
Thank you. Work for us.
To repeat myself, the power pole is one here, and the one that's on the side is like right around here. And then the other one is, there might be another, I think the other one is way down at the street over here. So it goes to here and to here. So this corner is where it gets pretty close, like 4 or 5 feet from the property. And to be honest with you, I don't know where the other easement is, except that I know that it's over here somewhere. When our civil engineer Gareth Kreitz told me that the power pole goes through our site, but there's another easement on this side of the property. I have not talked to him more specifically about where that easement is.
And then,
But
based on your comments, you're willing to give an easement, say there, if it works?
Yes, I
best
think
for
that
everyone.
If it's undergrounded.
I think the owners were not aware of another easement there, and I think they were willing to underground it through their site in order to make that
Well, how
eyesore
about
disappear.
we condition it underground, but if Edison won't underground it, it has to come back to us? Can we do
Okay,
that?
could you, if they moved it to another spot,
Yeah, we want to be
other
able to,
property, could we add to it, or 30 feet from any structure? Something like
repeat
that?
what you were looking for? To be undergrounded or located 30 feet from any structure? I think you would probably want to see exactly what the visual impacts would be if it's not going to be undergrounded, right? So if you approve the project requiring undergrounding, if they're not going to underground it, they'll have to come back for an amendment.
Yeah, because its visual impact's pretty big right now. And I don't know what, if they try and move it and not underground it, what that'll look like. That could be right in other neighbors to that side across the streets, right in their face.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wouldn't
I mean-
Edison have to get an approval for that?
Yeah, they'll need to get a separate one, so you could require it to be undergrounded if it remains on site. I mean, that
Well,
would be,
that's something you could do
yeah,
without worrying about it. If it goes off-site, we don't care.
it'll be a separate CDP.
Okay.
Well, then the only question I have is do we know we have enough room from wherever we're digging? I know we got some cantilevering going on, but will we have at least the required setback from whatever goes underground to where the caisson is dug? Or do we still, yeah? Yeah, okay, just confirm it, okay.
So the condition is required to be undergrounded. You worded it well, actually.
Okay, so it would be to, the condition would be that the power lines, all power lines on the property shall be undergrounded before issuance of a grading permit.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yep.
And then the details of that will work out however either the easements or the new easements layout and work with SCE. That's just TBD, but it has to be undergrounded.
Yeah, the condition would be that all power lines on the property would have to be undergrounded before the grading permit could be issued.
Great. And then I know there was some other questions that Commissioner Pearson was bringing up. I think, Lily, the next two slides had those addressed.
Okay.
Could you bring up the,
Yep,
the
that generator, backup generator looks good.
okay?
Thank you. And then my third one,
So that was the crawl space that John had called out.
this is more John's.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good, that looks
And
fine.
you had the egress from
The basement, yeah.
I did not draft a recommended condition of approval for the egress because I did not have time to review the plans prior to the hearing. But we could require a condition of approval for a light well if that's the direction you'd like to take. I would need to just ensure that the light well conforms with all the development standards.
Yeah, Richard
Well,
put
of course.
as a draft condition on that if you want.
Could, you want to read it?
And Chair, can I?
Yeah,
before-
go ahead.
Just, and again, this is back, we did this on another project a little while back about underground. And just let me read, I've learned more about building code than I wanted to know, all right? And let me just give you, I got a letter from Craig George on another project, but let me just give you 2 sentences from the letter he sent me, or the email he sent me. And it says that California residential code does require a residential basement, regardless of occupancy, to have not less than 1 emergency exit. Okay? Then he goes on further down the line and says, if this, and he's talking about another project, he said, if this other project had proposed an interior access, an interior access through a stairwell, a compliant emergency escape and rescue opening would have been required in the basement accessible to the exterior. So I guess my point is this. I'm surprised, I mean, and I don't know if planning is concerned with, I mean, the story I got before us says, don't worry, Steve, it will be picked up in plan check if it isn't done initially. And I think that's somewhat optimistic because I don't know who's doing plan check, and let's assume that every now and then they make a mistake also. So I'm just wondering why when you guys do this, sort of the emergency exits aren't included in the plans as we see them. Is that something you guys should be doing?
And in this case, there, I mean, there was an additional exit, but Commissioner Pearson called out that that could get blocked. So we're doing this in abundance of caution, but it's still had lined up.
Well, right now, there's no emergency exit in that basement. There's one exit. That's it. Right? Unless you wanted to crawl out of the windows that are high up in the room.
Right, that's what they were using as an emergency exit, and I just disagree. I think it's dangerous. I think eventually somebody could get caught in there, trapped in there. I just worry about that. I think it's unsafe.
So we just require a code-compliant emergency exit?
Yep.
Richard made a draft condition about this, if you're interested in the light well that they proposed, just because the plans came in so shortly to ensure that this doesn't cause other issues for the project. The proposed condition would be, prior to plan check, the applicant shall submit a light well plan demonstrating that no more than 3 feet of the basement daylights and the light well shall not cause the project to exceed the allowable TDSF.
Good place to start, yeah?
Yeah, okay. I'm happy with that.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Then, anything else? I got a couple more questions. Anything else from you? No? Okay. One other one, I don't know who best can answer this, but there's, at the kind of the high side of the property, there's an old foundation with rebar still coming up. I was just curious, what is the story on the property that was there? You know, was that the prior footprint, or just anyone have the history on that? No? Yeah, everyone's aware what I'm talking about, the rebar at the top? It's bloody old. Yeah.
Again, Jamie Harnish, it appears to me that there was some sort of structure there a long, long time ago. Because of the grading that had taken place on that property a long, long time ago, that pad is not naturally there.
Right.
There must have been some small structure with a retaining wall behind it, is why you had a slab and you had the rebar going straight up. So either they were building a retaining wall and never got to it, but apparently somebody a long time ago was trying to create a pad area with concrete and then a retaining wall and then never went forward with it.
And that's probably why it was graded coming across from farther off on Latigo.
But unfortunately, where it accesses Latigo is on someone else's property without an easement.
Okay, thank you. Just more curiosity. The other couple observations, just in driving around, there's not really a kind of a sense of community as such, because it's kind of along a winding road. But I did just note that looking at kind of nearest neighbor to the north, smaller house, about 1,500 square foot or so, it looks like. Otherwise, you know, everything's somewhere around 3,000, maybe 7,000, just kind of looking at rough numbers. I want to just call it out. This thing, you know, seems pretty much in line with that, but I didn't see any.
It's also got the 25% reduction.
Yeah. So I didn't see any problems. I just wanted to call it out. Did anyone else have any concerns about it?
It seemed to fit the neighborhood character pretty well.
It seemed to be okay for me.
Big houses up on the hill.
Yeah, absolutely.
With giant retaining walls, by the way.
Yeah. Then before we go to a motion, well, actually, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make the motion as amended, staff's motion as amended just now.
Can I clarify?
Please do.
Commissioner Mazza, that be staff's recommendation with the following conditions added. Number 1, the generator condition presented by Ms. Randolph. Number 2, a condition about the light well, which says prior to plan check, the applicant shall submit a light well plan demonstrating that no more than 3 feet of the basement daylights and the light well shall not cause the project to exceed the allowable TDSF. And then number 3, all power lines on the property shall be undergrounded before a grading permit is issued.
There was a fourth item in slides 24 to 26. I can't remember what it was.
The crawl space condition.
Yeah. And that would be the crawl space condition brought by Ms. Randolph, correct?
Yes. And then as far as the exact language, we'll work it out, but there's kind of a draft both in paper there and then also the slides 24 through 26 that were already done. I assume we'll baseline off that.
He just read the final line.
So that'll be, the final would be the language you just read.
What I just read would be the exact language that would be added for the conditions. If you want any changes to that, you should state it now.
I think it sounds good. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
Any
thank you.
opposed?
Thank you for coming down.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks for your work on the house. Good. And then the tour today, well done. Thank you.
And also thank you, Mr. Payne in the back there, for coming forward. Thanks a lot. Okay, next up, we've got item number 5E. This is coastal development permit number 17-004 and code violation number 17-002, an application for rock formation restoration due to grading without the benefit of permits and associated native revegetation planting on a residential property. May we please have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Chair Marks, members of the Commission. The next item on the agenda is the coastal development permit for 5800 Trancas Canyon Road. The project includes the code violation for unpermitted grading of a rock formation. The property is located on the east side of Trancas Canyon Road in the rural residential 5-acre zoning district and is approximately 9.7 acres in size. The property consists of 3 parcels, one of which is outside of the city limits. The city limits are designated by the red line on the aerial photograph. In May of 2016, Planning Department and Code Enforcement staff received a complaint regarding grading without the benefit of permit. A site visit was performed and the code violation number 17002 was opened on the subject property. The Google Earth images on this slide show the pre and post grading, and although I don't have a photograph of the site condition prior to the grading, you can see the area of disturbed area. The next slide shows the photographs taken in May of 2016 after receiving the complaint. The project before you tonight consists of the rock formation restoration measuring approximately 60 feet wide at the base, 27 feet wide at the top, and 12 feet high, and a native revegetation planting plan for erosion control. The reconstruction will take place using a mixture of crushed rock from the site, fill, and concrete. The applicant is prepared to answer questions specific to the reconstruction technique following the staff's presentation. The project site consists of steep slopes and ESHA located just east of the graded area. The slopes shown in burnt orange are 2.5 to 1 on the slope analysis. The property owner has installed temporary fencing to protect the slopes and ESHA located on the eastern side of the grading. The applicant has also proposed a native revegetation planting plan that has been approved by the city biologist. The planting will further reduce potential erosion impacts on and off-site. Staff has received limited correspondence since the notice of application was posted on the property in November of 2017. The correspondence was limited to questions regarding the scope of the project. In summary, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 1847, approving the project as conditioned. And this concludes my presentation. The applicant and staff are available for questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any disclosures?
I did a drive-by.
Anything else?
Commissioner Urin and I attempted to go there, but it was Friday during the tragic accident, so we did not make it. I live nearby, but not within 500 feet. So you didn't live there before? I bike ride by that thing, and it's the steepest bike ride you've ever done up that hill. So I know the property very well, and I did not see any of that removal of rocks going on, and I do ride up there pretty often. I didn't notice it.
I have no disclosures. I did have a quick question. Do we have any speaker slips on this item? I don't have any up here yet. No? Okay. So let's see. Any questions of staff then?
Jessica, somewhere in the staff report it talks about the grading rules of the LIP. So I went back and read those, and my conclusion was if they came in to try and get a permit to do that grading, it would never happen. Is that a fair?
We can't say definitively, but yes, the grading ordinance, the intention of the grading ordinance is to minimize landform restoration.
Okay, thank you.
And then another quick one, the slope analysis you had up there, it looked pretty flat on a slope analysis. I assume that's after grading then, so that's based on survey after the fact?
The yellow area is relatively flat, as is, and then it goes to blue, green. The orange is 2.5 to 1, so that would be variant slopes. Purple, I believe, although it's hard to see on the key, would be SPR slopes.
Okay, and I guess just to kind of, if that peak had still been there when the survey was done, would we see some red or purple, or would it have all been yellow? Because, does that make sense?
I believe you would see some, yeah. It's difficult to tell now after the fact what the color would have been, but yes, it would have been a steeper slope.
Okay, thank you. Then after that, what do we got? So it's just a public hearing, but we don't have applicant. So, yeah. Opening the public hearing. Anyone want to speak on this? We'll take that as a no. Closed. So, discussion. Anything?
Make a motion to pass the staff's recommendation.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, we have item 5F, Coastal Development Permit Number 17-003 and variance number 18-018, an application for an addition and remodel of an existing single-family residence, including a retaining wall variance. May we have a staff report?
I believe, Trevor, I got to leave on this one, right?
That's correct, Commissioner Euring. If, I believe you live within 500 feet of the property. Yes.
Great, thank you.
I'll leave this in the hands of my smart.
Unless, did you want to change the order so that? Was this the last one? Yeah. Oh, never mind. So, Commissioner Euring, I take it you're not coming back?
Do I have to come back?
No.
Ask them later.
All right, thank you. We'll give a minute to leave, and then we'll want a staff report after that.
For this one.
All right, if we
We'll
can have a staff report.
let the record reflect Commissioner Euring has left the room.
Thank you for the reflection of record. Go ahead.
We'll see if we get my presentation up here for you guys. Good evening, Chair Marks and members of the Planning Commission. What you have before you this evening is an application for a remodel and addition to an existing single-family home. Essentially, they're going to update this home. It's currently vacant, and they've done exploratory work, so they have an idea of what they're getting themselves into, so we don't expect them to exceed any of our remodel policy rules. This is a vicinity map and aerial photo showing the project site. It's about 4 properties in from Malibu Canyon Road along Harbor Vista Drive. The project proposes a total of 85 square feet to be added to the existing home. The majority of that is going to be a covered entry that actually is open to the light and air on the sides, but because it extends greater than 6 feet from the residence, it's part of the total development square footage. There will also be an addition to the home. On the rear of the property, it's enclosing an area that essentially already has 3 walls. There is an unpermitted addition to the home that's going to be removed. We couldn't find any building permits for it, and the applicant proposed the demolition of it. About 13.5 linear feet of exterior walls are going to be altered by this project. Some hardscaping that's there is going to be removed, and it will be replaced with permeable pavers. A new wastewater treatment system is part of the project installation as well as landscaping. The pool is going to be replaced in the same location, so we don't have a change there footprint-wise. However, there is a wall behind the home. It's currently, I realized the staff report wasn't too clear on this, but that wall is approximately 4 or 5 feet tall, and it's not adequate enough to protect the slope that's behind this home. And the engineers looked at that, and a variance was required to allow for a single retaining wall that it's at its highest point is going to be about 14 feet 8 inches tall. That's only approximately 20 linear feet, 22 linear feet of the total size of this. The reason why this isn't an issue and a variance is a good thing in this case is that if a variance wasn't approved, what you would have to do is demolish the house, regrade the slope, and then put in code-compliant walls. So you'd end up now with an entirely new development. And also the wall is going to be located behind the home, which the house at its highest point is just under 18 feet. So the majority of the house is going to end up blocking this wall so that you won't see it. This is a site plan showing the proposed development. The cross-hatched areas indicate the new areas that are going to be permeable pavers. You can see the turnaround in front of the garage. The wall is the line that's towards the top of this development, you see, that runs around from behind the garage, behind the house, and then around the pool. This is an elevation of the home upon completion. These are the areas where the two additions are going to take place. The upper box there in blue is the actual enclosure, some captured space. There, you have 3 out of 4 sides there. They're now going to add that 4th side. And staff did count the exterior walls that are becoming now interior walls as removed walls pursuant to the LIP, so that we don't miss those as part of this. And then the larger blue square you see there is the covered entry, which is open on the sides, but however it's greater than 6 feet. And that'll be a new entry to the home. And looking to the right of the screen, you see a dashed area, a box. That's the unpermitted addition. It's approximately 120 square feet that's going to be removed. In yellow here, you see the area that's going to be enclosed. You can see how they're going to essentially fill it in and capture that space. There'll be some interior changes too. And the lower photograph is a photograph of the front of the home. These are photos of the front and back of the addition that's going to be removed. And so in that area will just be landscaping once all of that work is completed. Staff recommends the adoption of Resolution 18-52 for the approval of the project. In that, staff did add a condition that was included in your supplemental report, and the purpose of that condition is to address a neighbor's concern. Harbor Vista, as you know, is a very narrow street. When they were doing construction on this home, the demolition work, the neighbors reported that some of the construction traffic was using their driveway to make U-turns. And so a condition's been placed on the project, and what the goal of that condition is that they're going to either use their on-street parking, the on-street parking directly in front of this home, or keep the vehicles on site. But the purposes of this construction management plan is to prevent any impacts of the neighborhood, as well as cause any delays along that road. So staff recommends approval of the resolution, and the applicant is aware of that added condition that was in your supplemental, and the applicant has agreed to it. Thank you.
So to clarify, the staff's recommendation is for the resolution does not need to have it added to it. It's the supplemental resolution, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Richard, I don't know if I have the right one, but is it condition number 47? A construction management and staging plan shall be submitted? Or is there a different one?
No, that is correct. It's condition 47.
Okay.
Do you mind if we do disclosures really quick?
Sure.
Yeah. Any disclosures? Me neither. Okay. And then questions to staff. Go ahead again.
Okay, so I'd like to add make that more specific.
Maybe we should, if you're going to change the conditions, we should probably open the public hearing.
Yeah. So we do have, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. We've got Terry, I believe it's Rainey. Yeah, and you will have 15 minutes to present.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Good evening. I want to start out with thanking Richard for helping us with this. We've got quite a bit of ground covered already for the project, and he's been helpful with us back and forth. Basically, I am here representing for the project, project designer. The owner, one of the owners is here as well. But mainly I'm here to answer your questions. I think it's pretty clear cut what we're trying to do here. I think I'll open it to you gentlemen, what you might want.
Thank you very much. So with that, does anyone else want to speak on this item? Let's see. If you could, do you have a speaker slip you filled out? Come forward, yeah. You can speak and then fill it out after the fact. There's one from Kathleen up front for you.
We'll reserve the 1419 for
14
rebuttal.
minutes for rebuttal. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can take a seat for now, and then
Sure.
we'll call you up after if needed. And go ahead and just state your name first, and then you can fill out the slip afterwards.
My name is Craig Chudy, and so I live at 23831 Harbor Vista, which is right to the backside of the property. And so my only question is I noticed that there was a retaining wall that was kind of, or it's our retaining wall for our property was kind of probably by mistake, it was knocked down a little bit. And so what my question is how will that be replaced, or how is that going to be fixed?
On your property?
No, it's not.
It's on our property.
I think it's on your property.
Yeah, yeah, that's one.
One favor.
Well,
If you could
if
just,
you can show, if I can see the picture, I'll show you exactly where it is.
yeah, let's go ahead and bring that up.
Sarah, you have some kind of a bright spotlight?
If you could step back to the microphone just so we can hear you.
Now, you probably know where it is, but it's right here. It looked like they had like some kind of excavation piece of equipment that banged into the wall. It's an existing wall. It's probably maybe 4 or 5 feet tall. And then on top of that, we have bougainvillea in our fence line. And so I just wanted to clarify how that. I will. Okay. Yeah, that's
Excellent.
fine. I mean, I just want to make sure.
Anything else, sir?
No.
Okay. If you could, the slip is there with a pen. Just fill that out, and then if you'd like to rebut that.
Show again which wall you're talking about? If I could use the.
Yeah. Let's have Terry can point it out to confirm.
Okay.
So our fence line's right here.
One sec. Let's have Terry rebut, and he'll point to it, and then if you have to correct, we'll have you correct. That way we can catch it on the microphone as well.
Okay. There we go. This here is along our property line, the property line. Your property begins up here, is that correct? Over across the street. This is the road. This is the road right here. Right up here, right, correct. Yes, the wall you're referring to is what we are replacing, proposing to replace. That's part of the wall. It's about 5 feet, 4 to 5 feet here. There was another structure here that was since been taken down. But that believe me, is addressed in this.
So I guess the other question would be is that we have our fence line right there. So in our fence has got bougainvillea growing over it. So will you be, what happens to my fence and my bougainvillea?
We will essentially, here we go. The fence is in good shape at this point, I realize, I think. It's
brand new.
Yeah,
Well, it's not brand new,
but it's fairly new and in good shape. We don't really plan to do any repair work. We are doing landscaping throughout, so up to the property line.
Okay.
And this wall will certainly be replaced, even better than the one that was there before.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
How will that impact my fence, though? Is that?
It should not impact your fence. If anything, it'll stabilize it to keep it from shifting or falling over.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that answers my question.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's what public comment's for. Thank you. Thanks for working together on that.
Sure.
Did we have any other comments, or do you have any other thing you'd like to rebut or address?
No, not at this time. There is one item I was informed just very recently, since the report, even the addendum came out, that the owners, the Hesby Ohio LLC, has been changed to Harbor Vista LLC with the same entities, the same corporate officers, all of that. I don't know, we have to address that in some fashion, obviously.
Is it the same entity, just a name change?
Yes.
It's not a new entity?
No.
Then you would just need the documentation showing the change of name. It's the ownership is retained by the same?
Yes.
Okay, it just needs to be the property owner. Yeah, if they're changing the name on the deed, then we would need to, the documentation for that.
Yes, we can provide that, certainly.
Okay. If there's nothing else, anyone else want to speak on this topic? I'll go ahead and close out the public hearing. Thank you again. And bring it back here for discussion.
Okay, I'd like to move for approval, but I'd like to add some conditions to the management plan number 47, because Harbor Vista is a very constrained place, and so number 1 to 47, I'd like to have the elimination of the use of neighboring properties for construction activities, which I would assume would be a given, but I'd like to spell it out. I'd like to,
Is that neighboring property shall not be used for staging? Is that the condition? Or the addition to?
yeah, staging or construction activities, whatever you want to call it.
Well, just to be clear, so like no one even turning around, they're not just staging, but actual just access to neighboring properties?
No, this is construction activities.
So it's neighboring property shall not be used for construction activities? Is that
right?
The words you want? Okay.
Now, I don't know how to use the word minimize in a resolution, but I want to minimize the construction traffic parked on Harbor Vista. Harbor Vista is very narrow. So, Richard, I'll ask you, what do you do when you get a narrow street and the guy's going to have a bunch of trucks? You say you could only have so many trucks, or?
What our Public Works Acting Director and I discussed today in respect to this project was that he would be looking to limit them, that they can only park in front of their property.
Okay.
And not let the goal of it would be not to have them parking in front of other folks' properties.
So how do I put this in the resolution?
Well, I mean, the plan already has to be approved by Public Works, so if you
right, but I want to have Public Works do what we tell them to do, not what they think.
Would you like us to state perhaps construction vehicles shall be limited to only the on-street parking adjacent to the subject property?
That's good. And then I'd also like to have parking on only one side of the street.
We'll say then directly adjacent. That way they can't use a property across the street.
Right, but I'm talking about the whole street. If you have 50 construction workers there, they all park on the right or the left side.
Directly adjacent, right next to the property.
Yes, the idea would be they could only park right in front of this property, not across the street, not out across the street or up the street or down the street, but only against their fence line.
That's good.
The only other comment I had was, would any additional language be needed for what was brought up by the neighbor Craig, or that is just something?
What, the fence?
With the fence reconstruction?
That's on a different piece of property.
So we don't touch that, obviously, no? Okay.
So that's my motion.
So to clarify, Commissioner Mazza, that would be staff's recommendation attached to the supplemental commission agenda report, resolution 18-52, with the addition to condition 47, which states a construction management and staging plan shall be submitted and approved by the Public Works Department prior to issuance of building permits, adding the sentences, neighboring properties shall not be used for construction activities, and construction vehicles shall only be parked on the property or directly adjacent to the property.
Read that again.
The last sentence?
Yeah.
Construction vehicles shall only be parked on the property or directly adjacent to the property.
Would that include employees?
There would be construction vehicles. Do you want to specify construction workers as well?
Yeah.
Okay, let me.
Maybe all construction-related vehicles or something?
How about this? Construction vehicles and vehicles of construction workers shall only be parked on the property or directly adjacent to the property.
That's good.
Okay,
So that's my motion.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
I move we adjourn.
Do you have a second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.